Hello, welcome back to Lady Love Said Reads. My name is Jessica, and this is my January 2024 reading wrap-up. In January, I read 15 books. Now, one of my goals for the year was to track stats that I actually care about instead of just tracking absolutely everything. So these are the stats that I care about. In terms of genre, keep in mind you can have multiple genres in one book. So if the numbers don't add up quite right, that's why there are some that overlap here. So for genre, I read 5 thrillers, 4 romance, 4 nonfiction, 3 sci-fi, 1 fantasy, 3 horror, and 2 mystery. 1 book came from Kindle Unlimited. Hopefully I can boost that number here in February. 3 were written by marginalized authors. So 20% of what I read came from marginalized authors. My goal is 50%. So again, hopefully we can boost that number. 2 books were books from my physical library. 1 book came from my e-library, or books that I bought for my Kindle. I had 3 DNFs. The oldest book was published in 2002 and the newest book was published in 2023. I read a total of 4,051 pages. One of my goals is to read 10% more of my owned TBR, and when I did my goals video, I had not quite figured out what that percentage or ratio was. And at the start of January, I had 205 books on my shelves that I've read and 338 books on my shelves that I have not read. So that means I've read 60% of my owned library. And this is just physical books. I did not count my ebooks in this, though I am going to track how many of my own ebooks I read too. And hopefully in my February wrap-up, I'll have some better data for you on that. So 60% I've read, which means that by the end of the year, I'd like to get to about 75% read, with the ultimate goal being about 80% of my shelves read. I don't want 100% of my shelves read because then I have nothing to look forward to, but 80% feels pretty good. And I did purchase quite a few books that arrived or got here in January around the Christmas holiday. So by the end of the month, having read 1 book from my shelves, I'd read 208 of my owned books, because some of the books that I bought were ones I'd already read. So I have 208 read and 346 unread for a read percentage of 60%. I did not move that needle in the slightest. Not even a little bit. So got some work to do in February. I'm behind the ball on my goals. It's not that serious though, who cares? When I do my descriptions of the books that I read, I like to play the game MASH. And if you're not familiar with MASH, it is a fortune-telling game we used to play in the 90s as kids that basically predicts where you'll live, who you'll marry, what your job will be, etc. So I evaluate 4 areas. I look at, with the book that I have read, would I want to marry one of the characters or be in a romantic relationship with one of the characters? For house, I would say, do I want to be in the setting of that particular book? For job, do I want to have the job of one of the characters or something related to the book? And then friendship group or family. Is there a family or friendship group that I would like to be a part of from that book? And I draw 4 books out of my apothecary jar. Because I had 15 books, I will draw 3 times and have 1 wild card per draw. And the wild cards can be any of those 4 options. Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Johnny Sun. Savage Run by CJ Box. To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. All right, let's start with Savage Run by CJ Box. This is book 2 in the Joe Pickett series, which is a mystery thriller series. It's got Western flavor, and I adore this series. I gave this book 4 stars. This book has themes of environmentalism, eco-terrorism, poaching, hunting. There's libraries, there's horse training. I really loved it. For MASH, I picked setting. I would love to be in this setting. It's sort of rural, and the main character is kind of isolated. It doesn't do a whole lot of peopling because his work as a game warden is just a lot of wandering about the environment on his horse and, you know, checking out what's going on with the wildlife. It's just something about it feels so peaceful to me, even though the plot isn't exactly peaceful, but just that setting. And CJ Box does such a really good job of creating that Western rural atmosphere. Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is book 1 in the Infernal Devices series. And I gave this book 3 stars. It is about basically magical creatures in the late 1800s. So there's the Nephilim, which are angels, and the angels' job is to kill demons. And then there's other creatures they call downworlders that are like werewolves, vampires, fae, and things like that. And this young girl named Tessa gets kidnapped by a group of downworlders, and she has this special power that they're trying to exploit. And then the shadow hunters, which are the Nephilim or the angels, rescue her. And I thought that this was a decent start to a series. I can't say that it's a new favorite. The best way that I can describe how this book felt was that it's very plot heavy and empty of anything else. Like, it had some decent ambiance, but very little like character development, no real exploration of any philosophical ideas or concepts or themes. This was a very plot heavy story, and I'm not really a plot driven reader. I think this series will get better as it goes along, but this one got 3 stars for me. For MASH, I picked out romantic partner because there's got to be someone within this universe that I would find intriguing. Maybe Magnus Bane. I couldn't pick one specific person though, because none of the characters were all that well developed. So maybe Magnus Bane, because I knew more about him from reading some of the short stories. I forgot to draw my wild card for this round, so let me draw it. Oh, Die Again by Tess Gerritsen. Okay, that's the wild card. Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Johnny Sun. This is a very philosophical graphic novel about this alien that comes to Earth to try to observe and study people. But he meets all of these creatures and animals that aren't really people that he's like, oh, you're a people. He meets like a tree and he thinks the tree is a person and all of that. And it's philosophy. Like, it's basically philosophy outlined in a cute, whimsical graphic novel. Is the best way to describe it. I really enjoyed it, and I'd like to reread it because I think that it's one of those you'll get something out of it every time you reread it. I gave it 4 stars, and for MASH I picked a job because it would be kind of fun to be someone just observing plants and animals and thinking that they're people and being like, hey, people aren't so bad. You never met a person. To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is a science fiction novella where a group of space explorers are traveling to different planets to just learn about the planets, and things go terribly wrong. And I DNF'd this book. This was a buddy read I did with my friends at the Lair, Destiny, and Chelsea. Chelsea has a channel, Read Chelsea Read. And I just didn't like this. I just am not a sci-fi girly. And the space and science stuff, I skimmed through it because I just didn't care. It was not engaging for me. Then the first traumatic scene that happened, I was like, I'm out. I can't do it. Can't do it. So this was not the book for me, and try as I might, I just don't think I am into spacey sci-fi. It's just not my thing, as much as I would like for it to be. For MASH, I picked Friend Group because the people that travel together to all these different planets have a really like tight-knit, close relationship. And they have to because they spend so much time together and they're isolated with just that group. So Friend Group, I guess. And then the wild card, Die Again by Tess Gerritsen. This was the book that I read from my shelves. This is book, I want to say 13 in the Rosolian Isles series, and it's about, just totally blanked on what it's about. So it's about a hunter who gets unalived, and so Jane and Maura are trying to figure out the mystery and find out who unalived him. What I liked about this one was it has a lot to do with cats and felines and like big cats like lions and jaguars and cat behavior, and that was really fun. That was a really fun part of this. Otherwise, it feels pretty standard. It felt pretty not special. It was entertaining, but not something that really sticks with you. So I gave it 3 stars. For MASH, Job. I'd love to be one of the zookeepers. Let's draw round 2. Take the Lead by Alexis Daria. The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. And the wild card is Scarlet Angel by S.T. Abbey. These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. This is a young adult thriller horror. It's very similar to Mexican Gothic, if you like Mexican Gothic, but it's a sentient house, essentially, sentient haunted house. This child gets an inheritance from her grandfather, and the inheritance is the house called Harrow, and Harrow is haunted, and in order to get the inheritance she has to live at Harrow for 1 year and figure out what's going on at this house. It is creepy, it's gothic, it's grotesque. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars, or maybe it was 4.5. Let me see. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. And for MASH, I picked Setting because it's gothic and grotesque and gruesome, but I think it'd be cool to just visit and see all these weird things that are happening at this house. So I did Setting for that. Living on the edge. Scarlet Angel by S.T. Abbey. This is the third book in the Mind F series, and this is about what would potentially happen when a serial killer falls in love with the FBI agent who is hunting them. And I won't give away any spoilers. I did give this 3 stars. This book gave me nightmares. It is gruesome. Check your trigger warnings. Check your trigger warnings for any book that I talk about. I tend to read really dark and gruesome books. But I gave it 3 stars, and I will continue on to the next book. For MASH, I picked Romantic Partner. The FBI agent sounds like my type. Take the Lead by Alexis Daria. This is a contemporary rom-com, and it's about a dance-off show that it's Dancing with the Stars. It's Dancing with the Stars. It's called Dance Off, but it's where professional dancers get paired with celebrities and then they compete on the show and people vote for them and whatever. And it focuses on one dancer and her partner who is someone who's on a different reality TV show in Alaska, like surviving the Alaskan wilderness. So he's like an Alaskan survivalist and she's a professional dancer, and their love story and all of the messiness that entails. I love dance. I love stuff about celebrities. So I enjoyed this in the same way you would enjoy a candy bar. Is it going to stick with me and am I going to remember it in 5 years? Absolutely not. So I gave it 3 stars. And for MASH, I picked Job. I would love to be a PR agent with any of the dancers or celebrities on that show. The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. This is an adult thriller. It's supposed to be a la Stranger Things or Stand By Me, like that 80s feel of the little kids always running around and riding their bike and kind of a close-knit little friend group. And I DNF'd it. I was so bored, and there wasn't really enough enticing me or intriguing to me for me to continue reading this story. And for MASH, I chose Friend Group because it does seem like a pretty close-knit little friend group that they had going on. And then the wild card, The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This is Britney Spears' memoir. Everybody's talking about it, and it basically just discusses her experience as an entertainer and what happened to her with her conservatorship. And I gave it 4 stars. Look, this book is not literary excellence. It's not going to win the Pulitzer Prize because the writing is very simplistic and straightforward. But the thing about that is just Britney. Britney does not claim to be an intellectual. She does not even claim to be all that smart. It's just straightforward and simple. And you have to take that knowing that that is just who she is. And I really appreciated that, actually, because it felt that much more authentic to her and her voice. For MASH, again, I would pick Job and be a PR agent. Okay, third and final round. A book that takes its time by Irene Smith and Astrid Vanderholst. Outlive by Peter Attia. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Famous for a Living by Melissa Ferguson. And the wild card is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is kind of a weird one since there's so much nonfiction, but let's go for it. A Book That Takes Its Time by Irene Smith and Astrid Vanderholst. This is a nonfiction work of activities that you're supposed to do in order to develop better mindfulness habits, and it does have little articles in there. The articles weren't very substantive. I didn't find this to be all that helpful, but it was really lovely. I mean, it was a lovely book, like beautiful photos and illustrations and things like that. So I gave it 3 stars. For MASH, I picked Friend Group because it would be fun to do some of these activities with a friend. Famous for a Living by Melissa Ferguson. This is a contemporary rom-com, and it's about a content creator who is like Instagram famous, kind of. She's social media famous. And she gets into a situation where she signs a bad contract and loses everything. And so she moves to her uncle's place out in the national park. I want to say in Montana. It's like some national park. And she starts to work for the Park Service doing social media management there. She meets a rugged mountain man. They fall in love. Are we sensing a theme here with my romances that I read this month? But this I didn't think I would like. But it was so cozy. It was very cozy and lighthearted and fun. It was a little bit silly, but it was just a good time. Like overall, just like a solid, fun, silly, goofy, good time. And for this, I picked setting because what I liked the most about it was that setting. Gosh, that setting again, that feel. And you know, when I was reading Take the Lead by Alexis Daria, the Alaskan parts where they're like the Alaskan mountain man, something about that just really hit for me in January. Savage Run, Take the Lead, Famous for a Living. Just that sense of like living in a rural cabin away from the hustle and bustle of a city or society, living a more simple life. It just hit the spot. So I definitely picked setting for this for MASH. And I did give this book 3 stars. I would recommend it if you like just lighthearted, fun romances. Outlive by Peter Attia. This is nonfiction about how to increase your lifespan, but not just live longer, live better. I hated this book. I DNF'd it. It felt like junk science. It felt biased. The advice he gave was really not all that applicable and felt pretty like he was coming from a place of privilege that none of us could access. Oh, goodness. I talked about this in a vlog. I'll try to link you to it, but it just was not a good book. I do not recommend it for anybody. For MASH, I picked Job because I feel like I could probably do better research than this guy could. So we'll just leave it at that. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. This was my favorite book of the month. I gave it 5 stars. And this is a faith-based approach to simplifying your life and slowing down. And he uses a lot of like theological reasons for why we should slow down, examples from the Bible about why it's important, and then gives some practical advice and steps for how to actually do that, how to slow down, how to stop hurrying, how to stop like that stress cycle, how to simplify your life and all of that. And I found it to be really, really powerful and impactful for me as I go through this process of recovering from burnout in my own life. So this book was very specifically helpful for me. I don't know that it's going to be helpful for everybody because it is Christian faith based. So if that is not your jam, you probably won't like this or benefit from it. But I absolutely loved it and took away a lot from it and gave it 5 stars. This is weird too because it's nonfiction. It's hard to do. But for MASH, I picked romantic partner because it would be great to have a partner who also lived this lifestyle, I guess. And then the wild card was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is a contemporary romance where 2 writers swap genres. And the guy has to write a romance and the gal has to write lit fic, and kind of the process of doing that, and they fall in love and all of that. And I loved this. This worked for me. I gave it 4 stars. And why it worked is because of how much it gets into grief. One of the characters is processing grief of a loved one that they lost. And the whole exploration of that topic was just so well done. And I liked that almost more than I liked the relationship, but I liked how the characters worked through the grief together in the relationship. Like, it's a book that I learned from quite a bit as I go through grief myself. And it worked for me. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. For MASH, I mean, it could be either job as a writer or romantic partner, because both of these people are really healthy, like emotionally healthy. They're not perfect, but they're working through their issues in healthy ways. So it could be that. It could also be location. It's in another kind of small, remote place where the community is really tight-knit. Could be any of those things. All right, that will do it for my wrap up today. Have you read any of these books? Let me know down below what you thought of them. Are you going to read any of them? Tell me which ones you might read. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. If you just want to leave me an emoji, because we dealt so much with like forests and national parks and rural areas and natural spaces this month in my books, go ahead and leave me any kind of like tree or plant or like landscape emoji. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!